Listen up, people. That's right. It's time to listen to the sparks of bliss in your life. I'm your host and life coach, Caroline de Posada from Miami, Florida. And this podcast is an invitation to join me in upgrading our mindset, wellness, and relationships so that together we create a life that unlocks our bliss. Join me each week as we explore practical strategies, inspiring stories, and the moments of clarity, or as we like to call them, los momenticos, that make the world a little more magical. Consider this your weekly dose of wisdom in your pocket. Are you ready? Let's do this.
Hi guys, welcome to episode number 5 of Listen Up. So this week's episode actually marks 1 month since I launched this podcast, which is really cool because I've been seeing more people are subscribing and following along, and they're starting to download the episodes, and some people have rated and reviewed the episodes. So it's been great to see how little by little I'm connecting with so many of you. And also for me, it's been a joy to show up every single week, knowing that every sacred Sunday I get to sit and connect with you guys. And it's been a pleasure for me, and I hope that it's serving you. So thank you. Thank you for being here as we continue to evolve and progress and move this beautiful space along and create something that is meaningful. It's like a dream come true. So today's episode is actually in response to a question that I got from a listener. She sent me a message and she said, I don't know if I missed this in one of your episodes, but have you explained the actual definition of bliss? And I thought that was such a great question because after all, this podcast is called Listen Up. So it's all about listening for the bliss that is within you. So it's natural to want to define what that is. Like, what does that mean? And why does it matter? Why does listening for sparks of bliss make our lives better? Why participate in the exercise in the first place? So thank you for that question. And I have all sorts of thoughts about it. So I'm going to start with Webster's dictionary definition of bliss, which is very simple. It's complete happiness is definition number 1. And definition number 2 is paradise or heaven. And that is the very basic definition of what we interpret as bliss. The difference between bliss and happiness or joy is that bliss is known as something that is more intense. It's transcendental. It has a feeling of timelessness. It's more complete. It's a more complete state of happiness. So that's why they call it complete happiness. So it's like, in essence, bliss is a moment of perfection. And I think that's why it's differentiated from happiness or joy. My definition of bliss, like when I think about my definition, it's really this, the best way that I know how to identify it is like I have this feeling that I get in the pit of my stomach, like at the top of my stomach, where my heart is. It's like in the pit of my soul, I feel this deep sense of ecstasy, of just completeness, of wholeness, of just utter joy. I get this feeling where I'm like, it kind of like takes my breath away. And whenever I feel that, it's just one of the most remarkable feelings ever. And I don't know if you've ever felt that, but that's kind of like how I interpret a moment of bliss. But I decided when I first started to explore this concept and study this, to ask people what they considered their definition of bliss to be. So I would often walk up to somebody and say, okay, I want you to tell me what you think of when you hear the word bliss. And every time that I would ask the question, it would surprise the listener for a second, right? But then that listener would think about it, like pause, And then immediately you would see a smile flash across their face. And it was like they were connecting with their meaning of bliss. So some of the definitions that I've received from those people, from listeners like that, is peace. I hear peace all the time. Pure happiness, the beach, a water view, nature, the smile on my daughter's face, a sexual encounter, smelling the air, when the bills are paid. So you see, each time I get a different description of what someone considers to be bliss in their life. And all these definitions leads me into thinking about the power and the paradox of naming things, right? You know, I'm a big namer. I love labels. I love naming things. I love creating words. Words is my jam. I love words. It's the way that I identify with life. And I think we all need to name things because it helps us compartmentalize in our brain what something means. So, you know, it is important to create names for things. And yet, naming things can also be limiting because when we define something, we limit it. We create a box around it. We create boundaries around it. We compartmentalize it. And sometimes that could actually hurt the thing that we're trying to name. I often hear that about God. You know, when you name God, you can connect with God, but then you limit God because we don't fully understand what God is, and therefore we limit God by naming him. I also have heard this, Wayne Dyer talks about this a lot with the Tao Te Ching. The Tao Te Ching is an ancient Chinese text which is attributed to this sage Laozi, who's considered the founder of Taoism. And he talks about living in harmony with the Tao, which is also called the Way. And Wayne Dyer often talks about how the Tao is named and nameless, right? He's everything and he's nothing at the same time. It's this paradox of being able to identify something and yet not fully being able to comprehend what that thing is. So in our humanity, we tend to limit things and therefore we don't fully grasp the meaning of it. So I feel the same way with bliss, because bliss is, because it's supposed to be a complete state of happiness, this like paradise, heaven, you know, this peak state, we name it and then we limit it because we don't fully grasp it or understand it. All that to say that although it is important to, you know, create awareness around these things, it's also important to stay open and curious to the mystery of all of it, because it's greater, it's bigger than we can imagine. So anyway, when I started asking people about this, one thing that I noticed is that the moment that I introduced the word into these people's conscience, they all of a sudden became more aware of it. So I'll give you an example. One random day, I was in the car driving with my husband and my kids, and I asked all of them, like, hey, what do you guys think when you hear the word bliss? And they all thought about it. And, you know, I have an 11-year-old, a 13-year-old, a 15-year-old, and my husband. So they all had different interpretations. You know, I didn't even know if my 11-year-old had ever heard the word bliss before. So they're all giving me like their definitions of what they think it is. Fast forward, we're home. A couple days later, we had just remodeled our house, and our couch has these like they're individual pieces and they have clips at the bottom. And when the designer put the couch together, we hadn't decided exactly where the couch was going to go or how many pieces of the couch we were going to use. So she never attached the clips to the couch. And it was like an item that was pending, that was left undone. So one random day, my husband and I are there with the couch, and the couch is kind of like sliding. And he's like, "Why don't we just try to put the clips ourselves instead of waiting for a designer to come and do it?" And I agreed. So we start grabbing the couch, and it's my oldest son, my husband, and myself, and we're like moving the couch around. We're picking it up. We're like holding it all together, and then it requires quite a bit of force to add the clip. So my husband is using like all his strength to add the clip. And we finally get the first one in, and then we get the second one in, and finally we get the third clip. And we like completed this task, and the couch is all clipped together, and we bring it down carefully to the floor, and it just looks so put together. It's so tight, and it just looks so much better than it was when the pieces were floating around. And my husband looks at it and says, "Oh my God, I just experienced a moment of bliss. Like this, I just feel so blissful right now to see this done and to have this couch look so good," because he loves that couch. And I just thought it was the cutest thing ever, because he would have never said that had I not asked him about this word, if I had never like brought this into his consciousness, into his awareness. But all of a sudden he was able to connect to it without just because it was like present in his life, which is the power of naming it. Now, if he were to be married to one particular definition of it, then he could constrict himself to not really accepting any other moments of bliss, because they have to like match some sort of expectation. But in his case, because he wasn't married to any sort of definition of it, it was just kind of like understanding that feeling. All of a sudden, he was able to enjoy it and experience it. By the very same nature, my little guy, my 11-year-old, just really connected to that word and to that feeling. And every once in a while, he'll send me a text like in the middle of the night, or when I say the middle of the night, I mean like, before bed, like at 8 o'clock at night. And he'll say, "Mom, I'm about to go to sleep, but I'm feeling a spark of bliss for you right now." And when I've asked him about it, it's like he feels like this like moment of like just gratitude for his mom or love for his mom, and he feels compelled to share that with me. So he sends me these messages and says like, "I'm feeling a spark of bliss for you right now." And it's because we brought this to their awareness. Now, I was listening to this podcast episode with Ed Milet and Tony Robbins recently, and Ed Milet spoke about bliss as well as success and achievement and ecstasy being states of being that are biochemical. And what he meant by that is that these are peak states that are driven by chemical processes in our brain. So, when you have serotonin and endorphins and oxytocin present in your brain, you experience these states of feeling bliss, feeling ecstasy, feeling like utter success. And when he was addressing that, I thought, oh, that's such a great explanation of how we can, spark these experiences in our lives and achieve these peak states, which are so important. So that's kind of like the definition from a physical and from an emotional perspective. Now, why does it matter? Like, why is it important to experience bliss? And I think the answer to that is we are souls living a human experience. And in this world of our human experiences, we come to this earth and we are designed to feel all of the emotions and the experiences of being human. And that includes anger, frustration, pain, joy, happiness, peace, discomfort, sadness, anxiety. Like we're designed to experience all of the different feelings, and all those emotions teaches us about life and the lessons that we're here to learn. So it is important to experience all of the feelings, but we are designed to long for a blissful experience. It's kind of like that is the man's search. There's a book by Viktor Frankl called Man's Search for Meaning. And one of the reasons that book has been so successful is because that is our eternal quest. Our eternal quest is to find meaning and happiness and peace and fulfillment in this life while we're here. It's almost like this journey that we came into this world to find. And bliss is a part of that. Bliss is just like a complete state of this peace, of this happiness that we all long to feel at some point or another. And the problem that I think most people don't experience it as much as they should in their lifetime is because exactly what we talked about. By defining it, we limit it. Because I think that the definition suggests to us that bliss is a permanent state, that bliss is something that is eternal. For me personally, I kind of blame this on Hollywood's movie culture. We have this like happily ever after phenomenon, which conditions us into believing that once you find true love, or you overcome the obstacle, or you conquer the villain, or you reach bliss, it ends there. The movie ends, we stop paying attention, everybody gets up and walks out, and nobody thinks about life continuing post the happy ending. So subconsciously, we all believe that we can't achieve a certain state of bliss in our life because that is the day that we are going to stop struggling, and that we can walk off into the sunset with our dreams fulfilled and utter peace in our hearts, and we're never going to encounter another problem and another obstacle. And we understand that that's unrealistic, that that's not going to happen. So no matter how happy you feel in one moment, something is going to knock you off your cloud. And then your confirmation bias will remind you that you can't live in eternal bliss, that life is hard, that life is unfair, that this is just, that things are meant to be hard, and that this experience of bliss is a myth. And I think that's the struggle that a lot of people have. I think people get stuck between a longing for a state of complete peace and the constant frustration of never being able to get there. So what ends up happening is that when things are bad, you spend your time resisting that struggle, avoiding pain, complaining about it. But yet when things are good, you also can't enjoy it because you're afraid of losing it, or you can't let go of when you were in pain. Or you are afraid to get too attached to it and then lose it again. And those are the struggles that we as humans go through. It's like really, just trying to avoid pain and yet avoid complete happiness, because if we feel it and if we had it and we lose it, then that is going to be way too painful, and we don't want that. But I see things differently. I don't want to be in a perpetual state of bliss. To be honest with you, that sounds kind of boring to me. I remember watching the show The Good Place. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's awesome. And towards the end, I don't want to spoil it for you, but there comes a point where there was nothing left to fight for. There was no challenges to overcome. There was nothing but perfection in these people's lives. And eternity started to feel like an eternity. And to me, that show reminded me that I don't want anything to feel like an eternity in this lifetime. I want passion, excitement, and enthusiasm. And because of that, that comes with ebbs and flows. So the struggles and the challenges are actually part of the journey. And granted, we'd all love to avoid moments of despair or tragedy or deep sadness. Nobody wants to experience gut-wrenching loss or like rock bottom failure. Like no one wants to experience that. But the truth is that we are not meant to have a perpetual state of one feeling alone, because that would become very mundane and we would probably stop enjoying it or even appreciating it or feeling grateful for it. So to me, I think that creating a life that invites bliss to find you is living with a very stoic perspective. It's the reality that bliss is not permanent and that you can't live in it forever, and really accepting that life can be hard, that we are, we do have to experience and encounter struggles and obstacles and challenges, and yet being open and curious to the mystery of magic, to the synchronicities that happen, to all of the joy that does creep into our lives. I remember one of our family members' dads, his name was Assis. He passed away a few years ago, but Assis used to always talk about los momenticos. And he would say, like, life is full of momenticos, and those are the momenticos that you have to enjoy. And that always stuck with me. In fact, to me, sparks of bliss are momenticos, because we don't remember life in full days. We don't remember the entire script of our story. We really remember things in moments only. And those moments can be good and some moments can be bad. But we remember life in these moments, and those the blissful ones, the beautiful ones, are the momenticos that make life meaningful and magical and wonderful. So my goal with this podcast is to help you train your brain to and bring bliss to your awareness, so that you can become the kind of person that appreciates, enjoys, and savors the momenticos, the sparks, the little, peak states in our life. And we do that through a variety of ways, including exercise and things that change our biochemistry, like Ed Milet suggested. So it's a physical experience, and it's an emotional experience. It's a mindset. And I believe truly that it is available to everyone. I believe that bliss is within you already. It's in your soul. All you have to do is learn to pay attention to it. I believe that no matter how hard your life has been, no matter what you've experienced, no matter what tragedies you have faced, still there is a soul within you that is full of magic, of peace, of harmony, and of meaning. That, like, you are meant to be here. You are meant to make this life matter. There is something special about why you are here. You are a miracle, and bliss is within you. It is not circumstantial. It is not dependent on all of the exterior events that have happened to you. It is you. And so I think that when we create a life that allows us to focus on that, to bring awareness to that, to pay attention to it, it fulfills that longing that I talked about, that longing that we all have, that man's search for meaning. And I think that is a blissful experience. So that's what I want to focus on this podcast. From this point forward, is creating a life that invites those peak states, that allows those momenticos to show up, and that teaches you to look for them, to listen for them, to see them, to be grateful for them, and to not be afraid of losing them when they show up, because you have the awareness and the understanding and the stoicism to know that they are not meant to be forever, that they are little gifts to keep you going, to show you that you're on path, and to make your life matter. So that's what I got for you. I hope that this has been helpful, and I hope you'll continue to explore bliss with me throughout these weeks and months as we progress into this podcast. I hope that you will venture into upgrading your mindset, your wellness, your relationships, your biochemistry, your neurochemistry, all of the things that invite bliss, that allow the bliss that is within you to come out. I think you're going to be better for it, and I think the world will be better for it. And I think it's legacy work, and it's important. So I hope you guys have a great week. I hope today on this sacred Sunday, you bring bliss to your forefront and your awareness, and you look for it. And I hope you get to experience a few momenticos when you least expect it, probably. Have a great week, everybody.
That's it for today's episode. Thanks so much for being here. I am deeply, deeply grateful for this time to connect. Now, if you are feeling called to dig deeper and really work on elevating your mindset, your wellness, and your relationships, and you're looking for a life coach to work with you one-on-one and really help you just retrain your brain, define success on your own terms, and just live healthier, happier, and more meaningful life, well, I invite you to schedule a consult with me. Let's have a conversation and see if working together is in our future. You can find the link to a calendar of consult right there in my show notes, but you can also connect with me on my website, carolinedeposada.com, or send me a DM on Instagram at carolinedeposada. I'm so excited to connect with you a little further. Now, as far as this podcast goes, I would so appreciate if you could leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Those reviews help us so much. And like my friend always says, the project is big and you're a part of it. So thank you for helping me spread good in this world.